All right, welcome, welcome one and all to closing night of She Is Still Here, which is an ongoing dedication to the surviving half and the enduring spirit of the pan-gendered being known as Genesis Breyer P. Arridge, the departed half of whom many of us actually did know when she was on this earthly plane, was Lady J, Jackie Breyer, who passed 7 years ago. And we all know, to those who held her close, she is still here. We're going to have some good acts tonight. Astral Knife is going to be flexing their muscles pretty soon. Iconicide is going to end the evening. Mac McGill, if he does show up, will be doing a performance presentation. But as soon as she's able to meet us here in the room, Fly is going to be doing some autobiographical snippets and whatnot for you. And
Where's the tape?
what's that?
Where's the tape?
I gave it to you over your shoulder.
Okay,
I need a mic stand so I can hold.
Yeah, mic stand, sure.
I can be kind of far back so people can like jam in.
Be sure to step up. She won't bite much. And if she does bite, I do believe she has had most of her shots.
You do believe.
I do believe. And once again, all of her songs are based on truth. I give you the most important half. Actually, she was billed as zero content. She was billed as zero content, but the other members of zero content did not show up. So tonight, one night only, she is a zero content -2.
No, actually, I'm doing some spoken word stuff tonight, and actually I think it does have some content. So I think tonight I am 0.5% content. See you guys out in the hallway. There's room in here, and you can squeeze in. It would be nice if you want to do that.
It would be nice.
Feels good in front of you so you can move
Okay.
to the board.
There you go, that's better.
Yeah.
Oh, a cozy little audience. This is what I like.
Aw,
Cozy.
nice and fuzzy.
Yeah. So, yeah, my band isn't here tonight because I don't really have a band happening right now. I have a mystery black fuzzy throat disease, and I can't do the vocals anymore. So hopefully my voice is going to hold out. And so tonight I'm going to read a story, and then I have a couple short pieces, and then I have a couple of new zero content songs that I'm just going to do without the band. So this is going to be the story of how I got to New York. In 1988 is when I first came to New York. So it was 1988. Me and a friend decided spontaneously to hitchhike from the city, from a weird town north of New York, near Buffalo. I'd only been living there for a few months after having escaped a harrowing eviction from a squattered warehouse on the West Coast. Yes, it was January 1988, and I was wearing my little leather jacket and my short black tight punk rock skirt, black tights, and my Doc Marten boots. I packed up my black eyeliner and sketchbook. We managed to get around to these two Italian guys who drove really fast in a compact car. My friend sat in the back seat with one of the guys, and they kept getting closer and closer until she was in his lap. Her tongue was in his mouth. That was fine for her, but the other guy driving was not attractive to me. And unfortunately, he had this idea that I was going to hook up with him since his friend was hooking up with my friend. The ride was not fun for me, but driving into New York City for the first time was so exciting. I think we came in through the Lincoln Tunnel. I think we came in on 42nd Street, and it was late at night, so it was packed with just incredible-looking hookers. The guys we were with decided to buy some coke from a street dealer, which of course turned out to be mostly baking soda. My first night in New York City was spent at the infamous 34th Street YMCA, paid for by the Italian guys. It was a very weird and not very fun night. The next day, we ditched the guys and headed to the Lower East Side, specifically St. Mark's Place, where we were hoping to run into Jim Carroll. Instead, we ran into Jim Power, a.k.a. the Mosaic Man. He was working on a mosaic on some storefront. This was still the 80s, and the Lower East Side was still really sketchy and dangerous, and Jim introduced us to all the local wingnuts, activists, artists, and squatters. He took us to La Plaza, which is a community garden and performance space on Avenue C and East 9th Street. At the time, there was a kitchen set up there called the Rainbow Kitchen, run by some folks from Vermont. They were very organized, and the kitchen was very set up with wooden floors and a big tent protecting it from the elements, and the food was delicious.
Where, if it's open,
That night we
I'm not
stayed with
determining
Jim
where it
in a
is.
squat on East 8th Street, just east of Tompkins
band
Square Park. At the time, this block had a lot of highly functioning squats.
Do you see- if you- do
The
you see
building
the
we
back-
stayed
if
in
the
was a
back row is the
tenement.
back
My
traffic?
first time in a New York City tenement. It was freezing.
You don't want me to see where my stuff is?
Of course, it was January, and this was an abandoned building with no heat and lots of open areas, lots of gaps. There was a nice January breeze flowing through the building. Jim had plastic sheets over his doors with bricks holding them down from the breeze, and he also had a little and very noisy space heater, which didn't make much of a dent in the cold. He taught us how to make mosaics while a young lord's gang meeting was happening next door. There was a piss bucket in the hall that was almost full and a candle beside it. No toilet paper.
Piss bucket?
This is my introduction to squatting in the Lower East Side. Yay!
Yeah.
We finally tried to sleep, but it was so damn cold. We buried ourselves under mounds of clothes, and I tried to fall asleep shivering with a loud radio blaring. Jim slept with the radio on, which I, for one, can understand, as I do the same thing. Well, now I listen to the crashing waves on my noise app. Needing noise to drown out the worst noise that is in your head, or to drown out the noise of rats or other animals or predators in your building. I sort of dozed off at some point, but was woken up by someone yelling and screaming and banging around. It turned out to be an ex-girlfriend junkie girl who wanted her clothes back. So there went all of our covers. At this point, it was just a few hours to dawn, so we just shivered under a few wraps until the sun came up. As soon as it got light, we headed outside to Pedro's Cafe on the corner of East 8th Street and Avenue C. Who remembers Pedro's?
Yeah.
Yay! For Cafe con Leche. I had stayed in some West Coast squats, but this is my first experience in a New York City squat. It's really fucking cold. The next night we went to an all-night cafe and drank coffee in order to stay warm. About 3 a.m., this tall, very gothic man in a big black coat came in and somehow ended up sitting down with us. He had long, flowing black hair and was very handsome and pale and charismatic. His name was Voltaire. Anybody know Voltaire?
No.
Yeah, Voltaire. This is how I met Voltaire. And he was a true goth, but he also had a really good sense of humor. We had such a great time hanging out with him that he decided to take us home. He lived with his girlfriend Valerie in a fancy apartment building over Tower Records on Broadway. His girlfriend was very beautiful and also very goth. She was what?
Keith Richards lived in that building.
Yeah, well, I'm getting to that. We got to his apartment around 5 a.m., but she was still up, and she showed us her paintings. They were a bit like a combination of Remedios Varo and Edward Gorey. Very goth, of course, and also some of them were hilarious in a very twisted way. She told us one of her neighbors was Keith Richards, and she sometimes babysat for him. I think another neighbor was Cher. She commended us on being very coherent and intelligent for street punks. We finally all fell asleep as the sun came up and slept till very late afternoon. After some very black coffee, we went on our way in the snow and slush heading to Soho. It was a night of many art openings, so we hit as many galleries as we could, eating as much as we could and stuffing our pockets full of whatever food seemed portable. At one gallery, we taped some of our drawings up on the wall just so we could say that we had a piece in a gallery opening in Soho. We got kicked out of that gallery. We met a very cool black man, a painter, very handsome and very well dressed. He took us in a cab to a party in Brooklyn, which I can't remember much of, but then we ended up in another cab back to Manhattan, and ended up at Save the Robots, which was an all-night dance club on Avenue B and 2nd Street. The funny thing about that is that several years later, I ended up living at the Gargoyle Mechanique Lab, which is right across the street from Save the Robots. And my future good friend Neil Robinson, who was part of the Punk Collective, and ABC No Rio, which was also a future home of mine, predating the Gargoyle. Well, Neil was the doorman at Save the Robots. Crazy how that works, right?
Shit.
Okay, the sun came up again, and we were exhausted. So we said we walk out of Save the Robots, there's the sun. We're like, what happened? We were exhausted and just wandering around with barely any money. My friend had the idea of going back to Soho to try to meet some rich people who like weird artists. I was too tired to think of a better idea, so I went along with it. And we ended up in some Soho cafe, and indeed we did meet this man who liked weird artists, especially freaky young girl artists. He bought us a big plate of French toast and mojitos, and then took us to a rehearsal of his band at some music studio up close to the Hard Rock Cafe on 52nd Street where he worked. He was a manager or part owner or something. He was one of the big guys there. We went to his band rehearsal, and it was awful. His band was just terrible and completely generic and trying too hard and just boring. All of them were too old to be such posers. They looked like they were trying to dress like the E Street Band. I felt so uncomfortable there listening to this awful music and pretending that I liked it while my friend was totally working this guy. After the show, we went next door to the Hard Rock Cafe and we got a huge dinner, which we really needed at this point. We had all the drinks we wanted. There was a lot of cocaine happening, which I did a few lines, but that stuff really makes my brain hurt. I am so not good at doing drugs, I'm telling you. Needless to say, we were up all night again. About 5 a.m., he took us home to his place in Brooklyn, where I slept on the couch and my friend slept with him. We all slept for a really long time. Got up late afternoon, and this guy decided he was going to make gumbo. I think it was shrimp gumbo, some kind of seafood. He was apparently originally from the South, Louisiana. He was really into making the gumbo and letting it stew for a long time, so I took a long walk, and I was so happy to be by myself for a while. When I got back, the apartment smelled amazing, and seriously, that gumbo was so good. That guy should have been a cook and not a musician. An amazing dinner, and then an argument with my friend who thought it was my turn to sleep with this guy. And I just couldn't do it. I mean, the gumbo was really good, and I appreciated the warm place to sleep, but it just wasn't worth having sex with this guy if I actually had a choice. And he let me okay, I'm going to describe him. So he was a very genetic, urban cowboy-looking guy with way too tight denim jeans and cowboy boots and a big beer belly. And I don't really care how people want to dress as long as they are genuine, but this guy, it seemed like he was wearing the costume and playing a part. I was not a pro, I was not on the game, so I did not feel obligated to do him, so I left. I wanted to hang out with all the crazy, fucked up punks and weirdo artists, not the posers, so I went back to the Lower East Side. But it was January, it was fucking cold. I had been on some psych meds, but I had run out and could not figure out how to get a new script, so things were getting weird. I eventually called my dad. He was always a great dad and really the only person who ever looked out for me, even though he was mostly not around when I was growing up. He wired me some money to take a bus ride home to a warehouse space where me and my pals were paying about $50 a month, bribing some workers to let us stay in this building that was very slowly being renovated. Little did I know at the time that my dad had less than a year to live. He died later that year, sort of suddenly. He was working on an Arctic icebreaker ship when he collapsed and they thought he had a stroke, but actually it was brain tumors, which were so entrenched in his brain that there was no way to save him. The doctor said he would live for a month with no surgery, or he could survive for 3 months if they removed half of his brain. My older brother made the decision to do the surgery. That made it possible for him to survive through Christmas time, but he died on January 4th of 1989.
Holy shit.
Today's the 26th year anniversary. Dad.
25th, actually.
My dad. 26.
25th.
25th.
89.
26, 89.
Let's call it off.
2015. After my dad died, I ended up back in New York City, shacked up with a coke dealer. So this time I could not make the rescue call to go home. I managed to escape that situation just before some of his competition broke into his apartment, robbed it, pistol whipped him, and then left him handcuffed to a railing. I ended up finding my way to the Lower East Side and all those weirdo, freaky artists, punks, squatters, and musicians, and all the underground performance spaces, like ABC No Rio, where I ended up squatting for a while and got really involved in running the place, and then spent a while sleeping on the stage at Gargoyle and Making Me Glad on Avenue B. And at that point, I really needed to make some money and try to get a place to live. I was getting progressively more mentally unstable, which is a common affliction amongst artists. Yes. A lot of my girlfriends worked in the sex industry, and they were trying to get me to go work as a stripper at this place. I think it's called Baby Dolls. They were like arranging interviews for me, which was a downtown strip club. Another friend got me an interview for a receptionist job at a whorehouse in Midtown. The former receptionist had gotten a promotion to working girl, which came with a much better salary and benefits. Apparently, the receptionist job was an entry-level position. They said the job was mine if I wanted it. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, my job hunting was interrupted by a quite spectacular bipolar episode. I ended up in a squad on East 7th Street where I did 3-month probationary work period and got voted in as a member. I was given a burned-out, destroyed space on the 3rd floor in August of 1992, and at this point my life became consumed with building and defending our squad. I became immersed in the squatter homesteader community of the Lower East Side, which was a huge and vibrant community at the time. We would dumpster everything. We would help each other out in our buildings. We would plant gardens in empty lots. We would defend each other to the death. We would lie, cheat, and steal when necessary. We were crusty, grimy, skinny, and stinky, covered in patches and cement dust. Perfect, accurate description. No joke. Sounds like a crusty punk utopia, but the truth is there was all kinds of people involved of all races and denominations, and you couldn't always tell who was your comrade or who would stab you in the back. There was a lot of internal conflict, which often turned violent. There was a lot of drug use that would be tolerated to a certain extent, depending on which building. There were instances of sexism, racism, and mental or physical abuse, all of which were handled by the collective of the building where it occurred and sometimes required help from other buildings. There were a lot of incidents that we do not include in our official history, things we cannot talk about publicly for legal or personal safety. It's not easy to self-govern. There are a lot of people who want to take advantage of a free state. People who don't understand that no gods, no masters does not mean do whatever the fuck you want. It's much more difficult to figure out how to run your own life than to be told what to do, but it's very much worth the effort. My squad apartment took years to build, but I did it, and I remain there to this day. Now we are legal. We are legal owners. We've won. Thank you guys.
Not a good place to be when I'm working the soundboard.
Thanks for being here. Thank you, Fly. I didn't know you
Unless you're
wrote
what-
poetry too.
Oh, I write stories. I've been writing forever.
I mean, I know on your artwork.
Yeah, I have a book that was published in 1999. Like, yeah, I'm a writer. I'm a writer.
Really? Yeah. Very touching. Yes, really deep. I really love it.
Where
Just
was
like
the
your art.
beaches?
That's how I got my name, actually.
Oh, no. We walked up.
Fly. Nobody ever remembered
Oh, a
my
zine.
name. Nobody.
Can you get the
He
zine?
turned the corner.
Fly zine.
What corner?
Magazine. Fly magazine. Can't get those anymore. I did those like from the mid '80s.
Her eyes are wicked, and her legs are long. When she moves, my brain screams out this song. Ah! Hello.
Like, imagine like Linda Blair in The Exorcist going,
Hello. I love you. Oh, tell me your name.
apparently his name is Lagreen.
He's waiting to get the mask on.
one line. You can't be doing two different things through one line. There's only one line, and it's all the way up. So it must be something on your end.
No, that's the mic. I can.
Okay, wait a minute, hold on.
Dude, let me get in there, man.
Yeah, wait, which one do you want? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. I believe she's up. I believe she's up already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm getting these
Yeah.
before now.
You guys good to go? Yeah, baby.
Is it? I am filming, yes.
Better.
nuisance must be eradicated. You can feast on them.
The other mic was not feeding back. When we used the other mic, it wasn't feeding back. No, before, when this wasn't playing, that mic was feeding back. When I used the other mic, it wasn't feeding back. Before they started playing. Don't hear anything. All I hear is it feeding back. I don't hear anything else.
The bringers of peace. The bringers of peace.
It's feeding back. I got nothing.
The bringers of peace.
The other mic was fine.
Waves washing over me like swarms of locusts. All bringers of peace. Bring war. All the
Oh, man. Yeah! That was amazing.
Thank you.
If you had an actual PA that would
It may have took a while to get the feel of what we were, you know, working with.
Nice.
Is there more?
what?
Is there more?
Oh, it's good, but it's like,
I don't know.
I mean, I think that was more than enough. It was like, it was difficult to get anything to work.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean,